Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome Jody Salvo from the Tuscarawas County Anti-Drug Coalition. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Susie.
So this is kind of a new organization that is getting started, a new collaboration. Tell me about it.
Well, the Tuscarawas County Anti-Drug Coalition has been around since 2012 was probably our real let's get started point.
Okay, so not that new.
And, yeah, so we've been around for a while, but how an anti-drug coalition is structured is we really target particular parts of our community. So we're strategically thinking about how do we engage the business community, the civic organizations, and the faith-based community was something that's just been really on our heart the last year or so. So this particular effort is just one that has springboarded off of us intentionally reaching out to the church and say, you know, we'd love you to come on board with us on the area of substance abuse and prevention and drug addiction in our community. And this was just a really neat effort.
Before we start talking about how churches can become involved, let's find out what are some of the things that have happened so far. What have the businesses and, say, the education community, and what have some of the other portions already accomplished or are doing?
Absolutely. When we can start with schools, because I think schools are just a great place.
Yes.
When we work with the school districts, it's really to encourage our school districts to consider having comprehensive prevention education programs. And really in the ideal world, it's through kindergarten through your high school years. So really encouraging schools, look at evidence-based programs, be mindful of education alone does not necessarily equate to youth behavior change. Bring in programs that are effective, that are going to work. The coalition also is very mindful of looking at our own community data, what's going on in our community, what are our youth thinking, where are they initiating, and why, where are some breakdowns with families. So for schools, it's just helping schools consider what's going on locally and how we can best address them in a very strategic way. So that would probably be the school piece. With businesses, we offer certain employee talks, lunch and learns, and some of them can be what can employees do to protect their families and their kids, and just simple information. You can dispose of unwanted, unused medications.
Yes.
You can talk to your kids about certain substances in a certain way. So helping employees just understand issues more and arm families and parents to deal with different situations with their youth, helping them understand where community resources are and how to access them. Civic organizations, we partner with them. Say if Rotary has their pancake breakfast, blood drive, really requesting that if they would want to consider to host an education program, if they would want to promote take-back days at their events. We also dispense drug deactivation bags, so really encouraging them, hey, anytime you have an event, if you could disseminate the bags, push people to the drop-off boxes, that's extremely helpful. Another area that we really focused on the last 2.5 years was the Farm Bureau. So we've partnered with them the last 2 years, and amazing work with them. In fact, the last 2 years they adopted policy issues coming out of work with the coalition. And that's been amazing in our county because the efforts and the policies they've adopted locally has gone to the state, and even some of them have gone national at this point. So we have partnered with the Farm Bureau. They partnered with us on a campaign that then they infused through the county fair last year and multiple counties. And so multiple efforts with multiple sectors of our community, all just helping to educate, create awareness, provide resources, really eliminate stigma around the issues of mental health and substance use.
You know, as you're talking about create awareness, I'm thinking, my goodness, is there anyone who's not aware of this yet? that it's a problem that for some reason, one reason or another, the opioid crisis has reared its ugly head more in our area than most in our entire country. Any
Yeah.
idea of why that is?
Well, why Ohio really is kind of at ground zero. I mean, we are the number 2 state in overdose deaths in the nation. West
Golly.
Virginia is number 1. So yeah, we're kind of ground zero. But honestly, Susie, it is because of our location in the United States. Any time you look at drug problems, it's where roads intersect that are major thoroughfares. So you have a north-south and you have an east-west.
Mm-hmm.
And where we're at, you can easily access Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Columbus. You're just in an area where the roads are easy to get from one to another.
We hear the same thing with human trafficking
It is.
and drug
Same
trafficking.
reason.
Same
hmm
reason. We seem
Yep.
like such a nice little quiet community just in the middle, and
Yep.
somehow that is a way to everywhere else.
Absolutely.
What do we do when the family that is supposed to be passing along the knowledge to their younger members of the family, if the older members of the family are already involved in drug use? You have parents who are maybe addicted and maybe by no fault of their own. Perhaps this was,
Sure.
Prescription medication.
Unintentional.
Yes,
Absolutely.
completely unintentional. But the fact that they then have it in the house and then there are children,
Sure.
what do we do there? What's the message there?
You know what? Education is so key on this issue because you just unpacked a whole bunch of problems and issues that can occur right there. First of all, I just want to really highlight what you said, that people can unintentionally fall into drug addiction. In fact, 35% of people that are addicted to our opioid medications come through unintentionally. So that's a minor or major medical procedure, dental procedure, sports injury, work injury. So I only say that because, number one, we have to get rid of a stigma that it's someone looking to abuse medications,
Yes.
It's not a moral failing. I mean,
Right.
anyone can make a bad choice or just be in a life situation that can place them in addiction. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. But what else we also need to be mindful of is, okay, if parents are using or they're addicted, they might not be the best persons to protect that youth. And that's kind of where a coalition comes out to say, this is an all call to all community members. And this is one of the reasons we're strategically hitting the church. Because if a child does not have the protective factors, if they do not have a parent that is mindfully engaging them in conversation and really helping them make healthy life choices or creating a healthy environment that they're not at risk to initiate substance use, we're going to have more community and family problems. So the all call is, we need all hands on deck. We need all eyes on the youth of our communities, and we need to be intentional of reaching into their lives. So if there are parents that are incarcerated, addicted, struggling with other things, it's a neighbor, it's a teacher, it's a coach, it's a Sunday school teacher that can very just easily check in on a kid. And it always amazes me how little we need to give to really make a difference in a child's life. It just means so much for a kid to know an older person cares about them, they love on them, they're going to ask them questions. And, kids kind of, they really rise to the level of expectation. So if you have a Sunday school teacher that's saying, I see so much potential in you, let me know how your math class is going. Let me know how the sports are going. It's that piece of accountability. It's that adult saying, I don't ever want you to drink alcohol under the age of 21. I don't want you to try marijuana. I don't want you to try vaping, because it's not going to go well for you, and I just see so much potential in you, and I don't want you to get caught up in all the negative things that can happen. So who else? I mean, we have an issue with all the pervasive drug addiction that, we have grandparents raising kids, we have kin, we have foster parents, and really we need to support all those persons as well that are stepping in, that are filling in the gap, because honestly, it's hard for grandparents. Their heart is loving on that grandchild, but
Yes.
they might not have the energy that's needed to meet all those needs. So it is let's all come in as a community and support families, support our kids, protect them.
We see it more and more. You mentioned the grandparents, and they're being robbed of that fun grandparent time.
Yeah.
You don't get to be the fun grandparent. You have to be a parent. And I'm seeing a lot of friends who are stepping into that role, and they're blessed by it. They're happy to be, some have said, it's my second chance. I get to try this again.
Try this again.
If at first you don't succeed. But, but I feel sorry that they're not getting you can just be the fun person and then give the kids back when they start needing discipline. You don't have to do that anymore.
Absolutely. I'm kind of looking forward to that role. I hope I get to do that one and then send them home.
Send them home. It is a blast. It's kind of your reward, But it's more and more. We're seeing it more and more and more. Is there a concern now, kind of flipping to another topic? You mentioned the Farm Bureau. Is there a concern with where we're going as a state with marijuana growth?
For me, there's a major concern. I will say people are on both sides of the fence on marijuana, but I will say if someone is comfortable with where we're at as far as medical marijuana as a dispensary, it's only because they do not understand the issue. And I'll say at the end of the day, anything the coalition does is to educate. And I think when we educate, then people can connect the dots and say, we need to be very well aware of this issue. The marijuana issue is so concerning at this point because with all now we have medical marijuana legal in Ohio. And even though the dispensaries are not open yet, they're coming, it has really sent a message to our youth that marijuana is okay.
Right.
And it's the same problem we had with prescription drugs with our kids. They thought because it was a prescription, it was prescribed by a physician, it's safer than a street drug. And clearly we can all see that that is not the case. So we have the same thing happening now with marijuana, that just a couple of years ago, our kids did absolutely see marijuana as a harmful, addictive, illicit drug.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't now. And it really is not a kid issue. It's an adult issue, saying that this is okay. You hear all the time in the community, well, I'd rather people smoke marijuana than drink alcohol. And that's not how we should ever be looking at substances. But the concern when the dispensaries open is it's going to create more access and availability to marijuana to our communities. But a lot of people do not understand the marijuana products that will be available at a dispensary. Some will not get you high, and that's when you hear about those CBD products.
Mm-hmm.
But the other absolutely will get you high. There's going to be products in those dispensaries that have THC, and that's that part that has that psychoactive agent that gets people high.
Yes.
That drug users are looking at. But the thing with the dispensaries, the THC levels will actually be higher than what our street levels are right now. People just don't seem to understand that. They think, it's medicine, you're not going to get high. And it's actually going to be more potent by what the criteria is in the dispensaries. So we have this issue of there's a lot of misinformation of what that's going to look like. What the products are going to look like. So it's scary for me, and I'm thinking probably, if not in 2019, definitely in 2020, we'll probably see another ballot initiative for recreational marijuana in our state.
Right, because that would
and
be
honestly, for me, if we are number 2 in drug overdose deaths, I cannot wrap my head around why would we think adding another illicit drug would make sense.
That was always my question as well. And do we really need more people driving crazy out there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this opens up a couple of things because I have been told that the medical marijuana does not have THC, but you're saying some of the products and dispensaries would.
No, they all will.
They will.
Yeah, this is how it works. There's two major properties. There's a lot of properties in a marijuana plant, but the two that we're looking at in as far as the dispensaries are THC and CBD. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason when it is in a dispensary that it's not in a pharmacy, it's because it has not gone through an FDA approval process. The reason it has not gone through an FDA approval process is because they really struggle to separate the THC from the CBD. So that's really the crux of the matter.
Okay.
So some people, even now, they'll take a CBD product and they can still test positive on a marijuana test because there's still going to be trace THC in there. And some people don't understand that. I've gotten calls from businesses that say, I don't understand this. This employee I've had for a long time. They said they haven't smoked marijuana, but they've tested positive.
Yes.
They've said they're on CBD, and I'm like, yep, that absolutely can be the case.
Wow.
Now, with all that being said, there actually has been the first FDA approval of marijuana as a medicine called Epidiolex. And if you've watched commercials or documentaries in the last couple of years, you'll see like children with those seizures,
Yes.
childhood seizures. This particular medicine is for children with the seizure disorders. So it approved FDA approval, received it, I think, June 28th. Now, what has to happen is they'll have to reschedule that because right now marijuana is considered Schedule 1, which means it's a high potential for addiction and non-medical approved usage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been non-medically approved because they've not been able to control it. And when I say not being able to control it, like if you get a hydrocodone, it's a hydrocodone. It's a measured amount that's the same dosage. They can control it every time. And that's what they've not been able to do with marijuana.
Okay.
But this Epidiolex, once they reschedule it, it will be in a pharmacy. There's just such a trace amount of THC. It has a very high CBD, and it will be controlled. So a physician can write a true prescription to say, take this amount at this dosage for this weight for this time. So it would be just like any other medicine.
That'd be very
but
different.
That's not, yeah, and we are all for that as a prevention community for our anti-drug coalition. But what will be in the dispensaries will not be that medicine because that will be in a pharmacy.
This is
so
good
it's
to
not
know.
It's not a prescription, so it's a physician recommendation.
Okay. We need to take a short break, Jody.
Sure.
But hold that thought, and we will be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.